Alrighty, so now we know the anatomical position, and you know that on page 1, you've got all of these terms, superior, inferior, and that they're all paired together, and you're going to know all of those. Okay, what else do you need to know for next week's quiz? You need to know the body planes. For AP120, you just have to know 3 of them. And I would like you to think of maybe like an episode of Kill Bill, right? Someone's got a big old giant samurai sword. If they cut me so that I end up with a front piece and a back piece, and it's bloody, then that would be cutting me along a frontal plane or a coronal plane. I accept either answer, okay? So this person, no, this knee was cut along a frontal plane. A frontal plane is very often how we will show things when we're looking at them in a textbook. Like they'll cut the heart on a frontal plane so that you can see the inside of the heart. I like to think of the frontal plane because I think if I end up with a front piece and a back piece, I was cut on the frontal plane. By the way, if there's ever a question that asks you what plane or what section is represented here, or this organ was cut on which plane, there are only 3 answers. The 3 answers that are possible are frontal plane, the one we just did, median or mid-sagittal plane, and transverse or horizontal plane. Okay? So narrows it all down. Let's see. Samurai sword cuts me into a right piece and a left piece. That is the mid-sagittal plane, also called the median plane. I usually use the term mid-sagittal though, and mid-sagittal is the one in your textbook, all right? And then if it cuts me into a top piece and a bottom piece, then that is going to be my transverse or horizontal plane. All righty, those are your 3 body planes. What about body cavities? Well, you know how there are different kinds of backpacks for you to carry your books with? A really inexpensive backpack, if you open it up, it's got one big pocket. That's it. That would be an inexpensive backpack. But if someone's got a really fancy hike the Pacific Crest Trail kind of backpack, if they open up their backpack, it's got little pockets all over the place to keep everything separated, right? The human body is more like the expensive backpack. It's got little pockets for different things, and you need to know the names of some of them. By the way, which ones do you need to know the names of? If it is in lab number 1 in your lab manual, you need to know their names. So the cranial cavity, what's in there? Your brain's in there. The vertebral canal, what's in there? Your spinal cord, and cerebrospinal fluid is in there, right? Then we've got this whole area called the thoracic cavity. The thoracic cavity, this whole area inside of my rib cage that is separated from my abdomen by this muscle called the diaphragm, okay? So this whole area up here, thoracic cavity, this whole area down here is called the abdominopelvic cavity, okay? Now, thoracic cavity, very important for human anatomy, so it is divided up into smaller compartments, okay? You need to know 3 of them. The pleural cavities here, each one of them holds 1 lung. So where is the lung? It's in the pleural cavity inside of the thoracic cavity, okay? And then there is a space between the lungs. The space between the lungs is this one, the mediastinum. The mediastinum is the place between the lungs. What's in the mediastinum? Holy cow, so much. By the way, working through these body cavities and what's in them, we are on page 5. There is an activity for you to do to figure that out. And yeah, you need to know that stuff. If I ask you on the quiz, where will I find the esophagus? You better know where it is because it was in lab number 1 in your lab manual, okay? Yeah, what's in the mediastinum? The aorta and the vena cava and the esophagus and the thymus and your heart sitting in its own cavity called the pericardial cavity, right? Now, what if I asked you, where is the heart? If I say, where is the heart? Oh gosh, that's hard. So you gotta be complete. So it is in the pericardial cavity, inside the mediastinum, inside the thoracic cavity. So a bag and a bag and a bag, right? If I say, where will I find the heart, or what body cavity has a heart, be specific, well, it's the pericardial cavity, because that's the most specific. Then we've got this whole area, the abdominal pelvic cavity. You need to know what organs are found there. What organs are found there? The liver's there, the kidneys are there, the stomach is there, the intestines are there, pancreas is there. There's a whole list. It's in your lab, right? The top part is technically the top part of the abdominal pelvic cavity. This part that's in light blue is technically the abdominal cavity. Lots of things are in there. Let's look at the pelvic cavity. Not very much is found in the pelvic cavity. What is found there? Look in your textbook, but you will see that the urinary bladder is there and the vagina is there. And for a man, the prostate gland is there. Not that much down in the pelvic cavity. It's easier to remember everything that's in the thoracic cavity and its compartments, and then everything else is in the abdominal cavity, internal organs, and then just remember what's in the pelvic cavity. Great, we're almost there. Let's talk about organ systems. Organ systems, we're looking at page 6 and page 5. So all of page 6 is about organ systems, and the top of page 5 in your lab manual is about organ systems. Remember, all of those questions, if they're in the lab manual, they're fair game for questions on the quiz. So you need to know the different organ systems. And the human body has got 12 different organ systems. Yep, okay. And you need to know the major organs and what they do. So the job of the integumentary system, well, it kind of holds all the water inside, and it allows us to regulate body temperature. Those are some things. The skeletal system, we store calcium and phosphorus there. It gives our body shape, and it gives a place for our muscles to attach. What is the job of our muscles? It allows for voluntary movement of our skeletal system. The nervous system, that's a communication system. Endocrine system makes communication molecules called hormones, right? So make sure you know all of these organ systems and the major organs of each organ system. For example, the respiratory system. What is its job? It obtains oxygen and allows us to exhale or get rid of carbon dioxide. Someone else might say gas exchange, right? And major organ systems, the larynx, the trachea, the lungs, and the diaphragm. Alrighty? So make sure you know. Now, how do you know where to stop? How do you know how much detail to know? Okay, so first of all, on page 5, that has got the different organ system functions. Okay, and the organ systems and their major organs are on page 6. Okay, if it's in the lab manual, you need to know it. Oh, or if it's in all of your lab activities, you need to know it. Great, that's it for your first lab.